Title: Betrayal Behind Closed Doors. Judge Judy unmasks a tenant's shocking claims. It was supposed to be a simple landlord-tenant dispute, but what unfolded in Judge Judy's courtroom was a storm of accusations, secrets, and raw emotions that revealed just how quickly trust between friends can collapse into betrayal. From the very beginning, the tension was palpable. Ms. Stephanie Fair, a tenant, stood in front of Judge Judy, her voice trembling yet defiant, as she accused her former landlord, Mr. John Gonzalez, of 3 explosive wrongs: wrongful eviction, damage to her furniture, and harassment. At first glance, it seemed like the story of a vulnerable woman bullied by a landlord. But as Judge Judy's piercing questions peeled away the layers, the truth became far murkier, more human, and infinitely more shocking. Stephanie claimed she found John's apartment through a co-worker, who mentioned that a minister at his church had a rental available. Her old neighborhood had been dangerous, and moving into John's unit felt like a chance at a fresh, safer start. She paid him, moved in, and for a short time, life seemed brighter. She and John even became friends, or so she thought. That friendship, however, became the seed of suspicion and anger. Stephanie said John started dropping by unannounced, barging in when she had company, and even letting people into her home without permission. Imagine the feeling of walking into your own home and finding someone there because your landlord opened the door. It sent chills through the courtroom. But the darkest claim came when Stephanie accused John of deliberately destroying her furniture. She said he soaked her beloved living room, set and table with a water hose, right in his garage where she had stored them with his permission. Judge Judy raised her eyebrows in disbelief. Stephanie's story was wild, almost theatrical. Why, Judy asked, had Stephanie not included this major accusation in her original court papers? Stephanie fumbled through documents, her eyes flickering nervously, insisting she had police reports to back her up. The audience leaned forward, hooked. Judy, sharp as ever, noticed her nervous fluttering and warned, "That's not a good sign, Ms. Fair." Stephanie tried to hold her ground. She swore she had seen John with her own eyes, spraying water across her furniture, laughing with friends as he did it. She described walking around the house, catching him in the act, her heart pounding in outrage. Yet John's version painted an entirely different picture. He explained that Stephanie's couch was already in bad condition when she moved in. Out of kindness, he allowed her to store it temporarily in his garage, warning her it couldn't stay long. When she ignored his repeated requests to move it, he finally took it outside, leaving it in the backyard where the pillows had already been collecting moisture for weeks. His story sounded practical, believable, and free of malice. Judge Judy listened carefully, weighing the contrast. Was this a landlord maliciously destroying his tenant's belongings, or a tenant twisting the facts to demand money? Then came the heart of the storm. The harassment claims. Stephanie accused John of calling her constantly, banging on her walls late at night, and threatening to throw her and her young daughter out. She recalled a chilling night when John pounded on her door at 1 a.m., demanding to speak with her after an argument with her sister. Her daughter's father, who was visiting, told John to come back in the morning. The next day, John allegedly left Stephanie a furious message. If she didn't speak to him, she would have problems with him. It sounded terrifying, until John told his side. John explained that everything changed in June, months after Stephanie moved in. Until then, he said, she had been a decent tenant, though always late on rent. But when her daughter's father came to stay, things spiraled out of control. John described loud fights, shouting matches, and even a physical altercation involving the child's father and the child herself. At 2 a.m, he heard shouting and cursing through the thin walls. He knocked gently, then rang the bell, pleading for the noise to stop, because his own daughter, who had to travel 23 miles for school, was being woken up night after night. Instead of peace, John was met with threats from the child's father and dismissive laughter from Stephanie. To John, it wasn't harassment, it was desperation. He wanted peace in his own property, in his own home. Judge Judy pressed deeper, breaking Stephanie's story apart piece by piece. "Tell me what he did to harass you in March," she demanded. Stephanie admitted nothing had happened in March. In April, Judy asked, "Nothing again, except vague claims of him visiting." In May, still nothing. It was only in June, after the fights with her daughter's father, that the trouble exploded. Judy's conclusion was clear. Stephanie's claims of harassment weren't consistent. They weren't the story of a landlord who had always been abusive. They were the story of a relationship that soured after conflict with her visiting ex. The moment of suspense peaked when Stephanie brought her friend, Benita, as a witness. She claimed John had let Benita into her home without permission. To the audience, this sounded alarming until Benita herself admitted she had been standing outside waiting for Stephanie, and John, seeing her in the heat, simply said, "You can wait inside." Judge Judy pounced on this detail. "So, he was being nice, and now you're complaining about it?" she asked sharply. The courtroom chuckled, the tension briefly breaking, but Stephanie's case was unraveling. Finally, Judy turned to the financial heart of the matter. Stephanie had moved out in July without paying rent for that month. John filed a countersuit for the unpaid $435 and for damages to the property, including a broken bedroom door and warped kitchen tiles. Judy dismissed the damage claims as impossible to prove. Landlords, she lectured, should always collect a security deposit to cover such issues. But the unpaid rent was undeniable. Stephanie admitted she hadn't paid it. Judy's gavel came down like thunder. Her verdict was swift, cutting, and merciless. Stephanie's entire lawsuit, wrongful eviction, harassment, furniture damage, was dismissed as bogus. John, the landlord she had painted as a villain, was awarded $435. Judge Judy's voice echoed with finality as she told Stephanie that her attempts to twist the situation into a money grab had backfired. The audience exhaled, some shaking their heads in disbelief. Stephanie had come seeking justice, but her story had cracked under the weight of scrutiny. John, who had seemed cold at first, left the courtroom vindicated, and Judge Judy, as always, had cut straight through the noise to the truth. The hook of this case wasn't just in the legal battle. It was in the human drama. A tenant who thought friendship could bend rules, a landlord who felt taken advantage of, and a courtroom where every word was tested under fire. By the end, it wasn't just about couches, phone calls, or eviction notices. It was about how quickly trust can decay into hostility, and how small conflicts can spiral into courtroom wars when pride, fear, and stubbornness take the wheel. Lesson: this story teaches us that when it comes to agreements, whether with friends, family, or strangers, clarity and respect are everything. Never assume that friendship can replace boundaries. Never twist kindness into entitlement. And above all, never bring a case into court unless your truth is unshakable. Because as Judge Judy proved, the courtroom is where lies collapse, and the real story always comes out.